My allergies are acting up. But if you are a hairstylist, seasoned hairstylist who, hey, you've been looking to retire, right? Most seasoned hairstylists are going to come to a point where we're ready to retire. And it's sad and it's great, right? Now, one thing about it is a lot of seasoned hairstylists out here, you've been trying to solidify your legacy, right? And it's two thoughts you're gonna have around this time. You're either gonna be having the thought like, I really just did all of that work and I don't have anything to show for it, or you're gonna be thinking like, wow, that was really a great career. I'm so happy that I was able to grow. It's one or the other, right? You're usually not going to get both. So if you're a seasoned stylist who's ready to retire, or even if you're a former stylist, I want you to know that you can get your hair legacy solidified so that your family can access the generational wealth that you were creating when you were behind the chair. Like most people don't understand that there's levels to the business, and chair money is definitely not hair money. So if you are a former stylist or retired stylist, or you're a stylist at the end of your rope, like you just done, you know that there's more to do, but you just don't feel like doing it. This happens a lot of times when we get burnt out. So all you gotta do is decide what you're gonna do. First thing you gotta do is wake up first and realize that chair money and hair money is different. And you actually use chair and hair money in every single appointment. However, the chair money might be coming to you and the hair money may not be. And so this could be the reason why you haven't really picked on the concept already. So if you are a former hairstylist, right? Or if you are a seasoned stylist who's coming to the end of your rope, then this is for you. So the question I have for you is, did you want to solidify your legacy when you were doing all of this, or did you just give up? Did you plan on being a worker the whole time, or did you plan on having something to show for this, right? If you were like me, you planned on having something to show for it, okay? So if you want to solidify your legacy so it creates generational wealth you can pass down, this is what you got to do, okay? Because most of the times when we do hair and we think, oh, I'm going to pass this down to my kids, our kids don't want to do hair. They saw how you were so busy and never had time and booked and busy to the brim, and they might have even witnessed when you had your break. So they don't want to take on that business. Not only that, it's a working business. It's a self-employed business if you are a hairstylist. So that's the hardest type of business to even pass on to your family, okay? So let's talk about what's going on. Because most stylists, seasoned stylists, they're going to come to this point where they don't realize that what they've been doing is not going to carry over. It's not going to retire you. It's not going to do any of that. So if you are a seasoned or former stylist who this has happened to, I want you to know that it's no wonder that you feel discouraged, right? Because the things that a person has to do to retire are not clear at all, right? So we're going to talk about that today because I know you feel uh, like you walked away with nothing. I know you have to feel like, what the hell was all of that for? And then a lot of us, we sacrifice so much just to get the money for our family that it started to be like, this has to end somewhere because I'm not here. I'm just giving the money, right? So because I know that you don't want to do any more here, you probably don't want to stand anymore. You just like me. I decided I wasn't doing any more here and I don't want to. But the difference is that when I decided that, I had some digital products, I had some other stuff that makes money, even though I'm sick of the hair. So I want to bring back I want to bring back the pioneers. Like the pioneers who, and let me let you know, you might be a pioneer if you stayed in the industry at least 10 or 15 years, okay? And you don't have to do nothing else but stay in the industry 10 or 15 years, because one thing about it, there's this hair money that most of us don't even understand how it works, right? So let's go over some differences of chair money and hair money, okay? So the cheer money is the money that you made from the appointment. So after you did someone's hair, they paid you cheer money, right? You did their hair, you have to show up. You have to act very much like a worker here when you're doing cheer money, right? Then you got hair money, right? Let's explain who's making hair money. So when you do this hair in the chair, which is your cheer money, you only gonna get paid one time. You did it with some products from a company that was making cheer money, right? No, you did it with a product that was making hair money. You understand that that company is going to get paid regardless to whether they show up to do hair or not. Because guess what? You're so focused on this that they know you're the end customer. So the biggest secret in the industry is that the people that make this kind of money are usually selling to other stylists, right? They're not selling, they're selling to stylists, okay? That's where this comes in at. So if you are tired of working so hard to do your hair clients and it feels like you're too valuable, because when I got to the point where I feel like I'm too valuable. Like, you get tired of people telling you how good you are. You get tired of people telling you that nobody else can do their hair like you. You get tired of hearing that when it's time to get paid and people don't want to pay top dollar. And the thing is, it's not that they don't want to pay top dollar, it's that your experience has gotten to be so much that you done timed out. It's no price that somebody can pay you once you become valuable. The clients really can't afford you, and so this becomes where we start to feel underappreciated as a stylist. Like, I know that you were feeling underappreciated if you decided to walk away from your whole business. Because one thing a lot of people love to say is, oh, are you a hairstylist trying to get from behind the chair? Now, most of us know we're not trying to get from behind the chair. We're thinking that that's the only way for us to change the situation, is to get from behind the chair, right? Now, the problem with that is that most people associate getting from behind the chair with also leaving the hair industry, okay? Now, hair industry doesn't require you to work behind the chair, but a hairstylist job does require you to work from behind the chair. So what we're going to be going over in these trainings, if you get to that part, because a lot of y'all going to get it from right here. But if you get to the training, what we're going to be doing is showing you how there's levels to the business that can show you exactly how to retire, because some of the levels don't even require you to do any hair, right? Now, how about that? You a hairstylist and then you found out how to not be a hairstylist but still get paid like you are a hairstylist. This is where your hair money is going to come in, right? So I know you got to be tired of feeling like, I know when I felt like that, it was back in 2008 or 9, right? And hold on, y'all. So I'm going to do this. I want to get the message out that when it's time to retire, you're supposed to take a certain amount of steps. However, a hairstylist doesn't have to wait, because one of the biggest tragedies in the industry is that we don't see the levels. And I'll be honest with y'all, I found out about these levels from wanting to know more about finances and what exactly I was doing wrong, okay? I found out I was doing something wrong when it came time for me to make more money in the business, okay? So a lot of stylists are going to try to do this. They're going to try to make more money in the business by taking on more responsibilities. And what do I mean by that? Like, in my career, I found that I got to the point where I did not want to work, okay? I was 28 years old. I had almost 800 clients. I had my salon. I had everything like that. And then I didn't want all of that stuff. And the reason why I didn't want it was because the vision that I had of my business was not of me working hard, not of me doing anything I didn't want to do. I got my business so that I can get freedom, right? So if you're somebody who wanted freedom when you open a business, then you're like me. But if you somebody who wanted to work in your business, like I thought I would have to work for a little while, and then once we got it off, I would be able to not work. That was the whole idea that I thought the hair industry was going to give me, right? So I wanted to solidify my legacy. So it created generational wealth, right? That I could live off of, not just pass down, but live off of now and enjoy so that I could stop being so busy in the industry, right? Because they tell us, go get booked and busy, go get booked and busy, right? I'll tell you the secret about why you shouldn't go and get booked and busy so much. Not if you don't know how to be paid and pampered, right? Because booked and busy people are busy. They're running around like a chicken with their head cut off. They got back pain. Their back is hurting. And yes, I know that because I used to be booked and busy. And it was destroying my body. So I want you to know that if you are booked and busy and you're getting tired of it, it's because they taught you to go hard here on the chair money. Now, let me tell you what happens when you go hard on this chair money, okay? The first thing gonna happen is you gonna get back cramps, okay? You're gonna get back cramps. You know why? Because you are over exhausting your body, right? And we all got them. We all got them. If you was booked and busy, you started developing some back problems, okay? We can't even say that we didn't, all right? We know that. We're not even going to sugarcoat it. And I see a lot of stylists now. They're making millions of dollars styling hair, hiring people, and doing all of that kind of stuff. And that is a level two because you're not doing hair, you know, per se to make the money. However, you're still very much busy. So when I think about me retiring, I don't want to retire from a business that keeps me busy or keeps other people busy. I don't want to have to manage people because, again, we're talking about retiring, not picking up a new job. Okay? So if you are a seasoned stylist who wants to solidify your legacy, what exactly does that mean? Right? What does that mean? It means that you're to the point where you want to live off of retired income. Maybe you want to travel. Maybe you want to do some things that make it feel like all of this was worth it. Right? So if you are a seasoned stylist who came to the end of your rope and felt like none of this was working, or this is not what I signed up for, then me and you are a lot alike. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you what you need to do. First thing you're going to have to do is find out if you made residuals, okay? And I'm going to tell you just to be, not even optimistic about it. If you stayed in the industry long enough, you made something that makes residuals, right? So if you didn't structure, because a lot of stylists, I was talking about this to stylists, and I'm finding that a lot of stylists feel like they got the one up because they created an IRA. They created something that is a traditional retirement vehicle, investment vehicle, right? But as I'm talking to them, I'm wondering, like, you have all of this knowledge in the hair industry. Where are your hair industry assets? Right? Because you can get insurance, you could get an IRA when you're ready to retire, but did you see the invisible assets that you created in your hair business? Most stylists are walking away with this not created, not done, and that's why when they get done, now you got to go back to the employee field. Because if you think that you can do something for all of that time and it not grow into something else, this is the big mistake. And then it's the same thing all the time, is that the big companies are pushing you to get booked and busy, compete with this stylist, do this competition, all of that stuff. When it's really the same thing as, the rich people manipulating the working class, right? And you find that out as you get to the end of your career. And most people, when we're hairstylists, we always think, oh, I'm gonna structure this later, or I really need to do my books. Like, I know a lot of hairstylists don't even do their books, right? until it's too late. Now you like, oh, I want to do my taxes. Oh, I've been doing my business, booked and busy, and you don't have time to take notes. I know when I was booked and busy, people would be paying me. The money's going in my pocket. I'm over here working with a stylist. I'm doing hair. I'm working the desk. I'm doing all of this stuff because I was booked and busy. Even though I had my own salon, I still was booked and busy, and it didn't take uh it didn't take away the job. It made me have more jobs, right? So you might have found that. You might be that kind of stylist who you was on the right track, but everything you did led to another job, right? And so that's what was happening to me. Okay, I had a shop. I thought that that was going to make my load easier because I could make money without being there. However, it didn't. Okay, it just gave me a new job to do. So if you experienced that where you thought you was doing something else, but it just became another job. Hold on, I gotta get my other curling iron here. Okay, so you might have experienced that where you thought that you was moving up a level and you realized that you had made another job. Now, this is something that kept happening to me when I decided at 28 that I did not want to do hair this much anymore because I had so much hair to do at 28 that I already wanted to leave the business at 28 years old. I opened my first shop at in 2002 when I was about 20, right? And about 22 when I opened up my first shop. And so I thought that that was going to lead me to hair money, right? Now, don't get me wrong, it led to somewhere, but it was more of this chair money. Now, the one thing about chair money in the industry that I find that is aggravating is that it becomes unstable. And that's whether you are dependent on hairstylists to make money for you, or that's whether you're dependent on the chair money. Okay, either way, it's literally going to have a cap on it, meaning that you're going to get to a point where you can't make no more money than this, right? So the salon, I started realizing that's not what I want to do either. And I also realized that that is doing your hair business like back in the 80s and 70s and 60s before the internet came out, right? So around this time, I'm doing hair. I decide, you know what, the shop is doing okay, but it's not what I want to grow per se because it requires too much work and I don't want to work anymore, right? So the next thing I did was I created a poster, and y'all might have seen my poster. Uh, with me, presenting it like I'm Vanna White, right? The poster required me to keep inventory, ship it out, that kind of stuff, right? So it was like after a while, I started getting a lot of orders for that poster. And don't get me wrong, that's what I wanted. But it made me have more work to do because after I would get out of the salon, then I gotta go and see what orders I got. I'm sending out the poster, da, 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 da. And this was back in like 2007, 2008, right? So I started realizing like this is a job too. Then I got the tutorials, right? So the tutorials were good. However, sometimes people didn't learn from the tutorials and I would have to meet with them one-on-one. Now that part I actually love because it didn't feel like work very much. I didn't have to do much. I could do it sitting down. And I began to take that on as what I did in my hair career now. So I was out of this chair money space, right? I got out of this space early on, right? And I became into this space, hair money. There was some things I had to go through in order to understand what to do. Those I'll save for the webinar. Okay. Um, so the question is for the seasoned stylists who left the industry or former stylists who want to retire is did you want it to pay you? Like, did you expect your hair career to pay you when you got tired of doing hair? And if you did, these are some of the things that you could have done. And we're going to just go into that. I'm going into that because I want to make sure that you get something out of this video if you stayed. Okay, so number one, the first thing, I went to an estate planning meeting. My dad passed away this year, and we only in April. So very recently, my father passed away, and he had insurance and everything. But one of the things that came to my attention was the fact that I wanted to bury him, and my brother wanted to cremate him, right? And it, don't get me wrong, my dad wasn't a hairstylist. However, it got me thinking about what would happen if something was to just abruptly happen to me, where when I have all of these hair assets and different things like that. Um, and when I say hair assets, I mean I'm a published author. You're looking at my latest book right here, which is going to be Chair Money is Not Hair Money. That's my latest thing that I really feel like needs to be shared. Is that I learned that these two things are different, and that if you knew the difference, you wouldn't be worried about retirement because there's so much hair money out there that, you know, and you a seasoned stylist, that means that that's your money. Guess what? Schools do not teach anything that a seasoned stylist knows. The only time a learner has the benefit of learning from a seasoned stylist is if that teacher did hair, right? Because a lot of teachers, they don't do hair that well, and that's who you got to learn from in school. So let's go into what was going on. My father passed, and I started thinking about the fact that what if something was to happen to me? So I decided I'm going to go to an estate planning seminar, right? And here's some of the things that I learned. Number one is that we need insurance, right? We need insurance. We need life insurance. We need health insurance. This will this will protect if something happens to you and your family needs the money, right? Your family needs money to survive and get along after you pass away, right? So they'll get those insurance payments. Here's the issue. As a hairstylist, you probably have this thing that you do that's very valuable that nobody knows about. Okay, so the first thing is that this is regular people need this, and then hairstylists, we have our own little secret code of stuff that we have that makes us more valuable than somebody who just worked their whole life for somebody else's company and now they need to retire. Like us, ours is a little different because we have assets. We create them automatically by just being a hairstylist long enough, okay? And if you know that, then you know the difference. You know this already, but most people don't know it because they wasn't showed that type of thing in the industry, okay? So the next thing that I found out that we needed to know was what's the power of attorney, right? So I'm doing hair and I have this shop and these products and all of this stuff, and something happens to me where I can't show up. Maybe I'm hospitalized, maybe something happens, and my bills still got to get paid, right? So this is why you would have a power of attorney in place while you keep doing hair. So not when you need it. And this was something that was like an eye opener for me, was because most people that I know that ever talked about having a power of attorney or having to get one, they they did it when the person was incapacitated. Like you did it when they was in the hospital. You did it now that they needed it. However, that's not the right way to do power of attorney. And I didn't know that until this. The power of attorney is only good if you can speak, right? Now, if something happens and you can't speak, power of attorney just went out the window. If something happens and you die, power of attorney just went out the window. So a hairstylist needs those two things. We need insurance, health insurance, life insurance, right? And you need a power of attorney. What are they gonna do? I'm gonna just run it back over one more time. You need somebody that if something was to happen to you, and, you know, we're not wishing something bad happens. We preparing for the fact that it could. Okay, this is where most people mess up, is that you don't be prepared. And then once something happens, you running around and you haven't prepared anything. So now the situation feels a lot worse, when the problem is not the situation. The problem is how you prepared for it, right? So you got your power of attorney. Let's say that something happens, you wind up in the hospital for a few days, like the time when I broke my ankle, right? I wasn't in the hospital for days, but I couldn't get around. I couldn't, go. And this wasn't the digital payments era. This was the straight up, brick and mortar era, where if you paid your rent, you had to get you a money order, and that was it. It wasn't that much direct depositing going on. So a power of attorney would have been able to go and access my bank records so that they can pay my bills and keep everything going. Okay. So what I also found out is that it's two types of power of attorneys. One is for when you are living, and the other one is for if something happens and you die. So one is for if you can speak and this person could just do this stuff for me, I could say yes, I told them to. And then the other one is if something happens to you where you cannot speak or you die. So it's two types of power of attorneys. Make sure that you have both in place for whoever you pick. Okay, that was the next thing I learned. Another thing that I learned was that a will and a trust are two different things. And don't get me wrong, I always knew they were two different things, but I didn't understand exactly what that meant. So the way they broke it down is that, let's say that you are Madam C.J. Walker, right? Madam C.J. Walker, I'm going to use her because everybody knows that she created a hair empire outside of her doing hair, right? Let's say that she had a daughter, and the daughter married a man, and now the man wants to break up with the daughter and sue her for alimony, right? Because she is a part of that hair empire, right? From Madam C.J. Walker. So what happens is, if she had her money in a will lists your assets, right? However, it has to go through the probate courts and all of that stuff to get distributed. So what can happen is, let's say that I'm CJ's long lost daughter that she never told y'all about, and I found out that she passed away. If she has a will, I can publicly look at it and see, what do I feel like is mine, and what do I want out of my mom's stuff, right? So if she had a will, now if I go and contest that in the court, everything is going to be on hold, okay? So if you were written in the will and there is no trust, that's going to go through the court. It's going to be public, and anybody else who is also entitled by law will be able to postpone or either collect on said money, right? Now, the difference is, if you had a trust is not going through the court. A trust is going to be carried out exactly as said, even if there is somebody else who legally is in line to receive your empire, right? A trust will allow you to delegate it to who you want. So let's say that your children are who you were going to leave it to, but you can't trust none of them to handle nothing like that. That's one of the real truths of it, is that sometimes we can't trust the family that that benefited from us doing hair with our legacy. So who would you pass it to, right? This is when you're going to need to have a trust set up, right? You're going to need to have a trust. And so, hold on, what does this do? Okay, you're going to need to have a trust set up, right? Now, this is the thing. Most people going to fill their trust with insurance policies, LLCs, and different stuff like that. But a hairstylist, oh my God, if we just went through the assets that could go into your trust as a hairstylist, your books, your regimens, your products, right? Your stuff like that all have value. And they still have value whether you're doing hair or not. So don't get caught up in that part. Let's see. Tag products. Okay. Oh, so I can tag products. I didn't know that. All right. So, guys, just to recap real quick, if you are a hairstylist and you're thinking about retiring, I'm hoping that you heard what I said about the things that you need to have in place. Now, that's just what we're going to talk about today, because I do know that there is levels to this. Is levels to the conversation. Like, um, but I am going to say this one thing. If you decide that you want to retire or you found yourself in this situation where you can't retire, the first thing that I would do if I couldn't retire is I would go back and look at what I just did first and foremost. I wouldn't get discouraged. A lot of people there, we getting discouraged first. Don't get discouraged. What you do is you go back and you look at your career. That's what you do. Okay, you go back and you look at your career. Why? Because you probably did some stuff in there where you literally were, you was creating something that other people could use, whether you were there or not, right? So you were a seasoned stylist and you wanted to solidify your legacy. That's why you started in the business. Now, one thing about it is a lot of us, we get trained to see money, right? So I could see the money when you do hair. And a lot of people get this mistaken. You want to be seen as successful. This is the most biggest mistake that you can make in the hair industry. If you are a hairstylist wanting to retire, the first thing you're going to have to do is understand that the way success looks to society for a hairstylist is not what you think, is not what they think. Okay, and the reason why I say that is because the success for me was being able to make money without exhausting myself, without feeling that cramp in my back, without feeling that carpal tunnel popping up, because those are the things that remind you that you're not a boss. You work for these people. You can't just take off like you be saying. You can't just do what you want to do yet. You can't. You can't do what you want to do yet because you think that you have a business and what you really got is most likely going to be just a job, you know? And you realize that you own this job. You created it, right? And the question is that what you meant to create? So for me, I didn't mean to create a job. I didn't want a job. I wanted to, be able to do things my own way. My own way. I wanted to be able to do things my own freaking way in the business, okay? And what that meant is I wanted to have that life where I have freedom. If I want to pack up and go somewhere, I want to go on vacation, I want to go, anywhere. I want to buy the house I want to do all of these things. I started to learn that, let's say you're a hairstylist, you need $50,000. How you going to get it? Doing hair when people only want to pay $80, $90, that kind of stuff, you're not going to get it until you start learning some of this other stuff. Okay, so the way success looks out here is you might be booked and busy doing all of this stuff. Now, what happens when you realize that you are more than a stylist? You are a counselor. You are an accountant for these people. You are a relationship coach. You are a therapist. You are these other things that you not getting paid for because right now I know that if you did that, then you started to feel underpaid. Like something happened in the industry where you started feeling underpaid, right? It wasn't, okay, I gotta come out and come back.